Building on the architectural implementation introduced in Nuke 14.0, we have continued to develop Scanline Render 2 in order to provide a familiar utility render experience for the new 3D system, while introducing additional benefits and, most importantly, lay the groundwork for the future of 3D rendering in Nuke. The UI has been overhauled and streamlined to be more intuitive for artists and to bring it in line with more modern rendering workflows. The multi-sample tab has been removed, as artists would traditionally navigate to this tab to just increase the sample or shutter knob values. The knobs from the multiple sample tab have now been integrated into two new knob controls present on the main tab, which are camera samples and shutter steps. The camera samples knob sets the per pixel sampling count for camera rays, and increasing this value will improve the output quality of your render. The shutter steps knob allows artists to set the number of time segments used to interpolate motion blur. You can enable linear motion blur with a value of 1 and disable motion blur with a value of 0. Values above 1 allow artists to account for heavy rotational motion blur, which is more useful when you have, say, a rotating or a circular object that needs more time segments to interpolate between. Artists have access to all the usual projection modes that you're used to, and the introduction of scene masks and new lighting and material controls give artists greater control over what is rendered out of Scanline Render 2. A new ray tracing subsystem has been implemented, which allows for improved shadows with ray trace occlusion, and now includes point light shadow support. It is important to note that this is not a complete new ray tracing solution, but instead a ray tracing subsystem that, along with overhauls in nearly all aspects of Scanline Render's codebase, means that we can now look to introduce further ray tracing workflows and support for additional render delegates inside the Scanline Render 2 node in future releases. Included in this release is a Use Legacy Scanline Architecture checkbox in the Advanced tab, which defaults to on and as such utilizes the Scanline-based rasterization algorithm. Unchecking this enables ray tracing via the primary camera rays. However, ray tracing is still work in progress, so we do not recommend using the Scanline Render 2 with this knob unchecked at this point in time. The knob exists to ensure we do not break scripts saved in Nuke 15.0 or 14.1 when we look to make ray tracing the default in a future release. For this release, we have focused on continuing to develop Scanline Render 2 as a core utility renderer to support all the traditional workflows artists are used to in Nuke's classic 3D system, such as generating a projection onto a wall that you can render out to comp back in or use as a mask. But beyond this, we are looking to introduce ray tracing capabilities to the Scanline render, and that is targeted for the next phase of the work.